welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. My name is Andrew Murata, host of the show, and it is show number 150. That's right, 150. Unbelievable. So happy and proud to have gotten to 150. We'll talk about that in a moment. Super excited to be a member of the Education Podcast Network. Awesome to be part of Voice Ed Radio Canada and the great work they're doing. There's great podcasts on both of those networks, certainly including Education, Leadership, and Beyond. But just thrilled. I am going to sneeze right now, excuse me. But happy to be part of those groups and happy to have gotten to 150. Really cool. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Today's guest, Dr. Erik Youngman from Illinois, and he is the Director of Curriculum Instruction in Libertyville. We were just chatting. That's in between Chicago and Milwaukee. And he has got this book here, right? How many times parents, students just say, why are they making me do this? What is this about? This book discusses everything about homework and all the different aspects of homework. And we're going to go through some of these 12 points here, but really well written, really different too. So looking forward to talking with Dr. Erik. And again, his book here, 12 Characteristics of Deliberate Homework. That being said, if you are watching live, please jump in with a question or comment. I see we have a number of listeners and watchers here. Thank you so much for tuning in. So let's get started. It is show number 150. And, what do you learn after doing 150 podcasts, right? What are some of the themes, the general themes that I've kind of taken away? When I started this, I was on a local radio station here in Port Jervis, and I didn't know where it was going to go. We used to be live on the radio, and then we put it out on social media, and then things changed, and boom, and now we're live on Facebook. But we've gotten to 150, which I'm great. I hope to get to 300. I hope to get to 500. I hope to get to 1,000, right? I really enjoyed doing it. And what are some of the things I've learned? Well, number one, if you want to be successful at anything, you just got to keep doing it. You got to be persistent. You got to keep rolling it with it. We've had every technological issue you can imagine. We've had more snafus. We've had cancellations. We've had just issue after issue. If you want to keep being successful, keep rolling. Keep putting one foot in front of one another. Keep going, even when you not sure how, right? And each week I'm just committed to doing a show and keep rolling and meeting the guests, and all of that just keeps happening. So it's great. Number two, there's a variety of leadership types out there. There's just a great variety in people, right? It reminds me of the great TED Talk by Malcolm Gladwell on spaghetti sauce, right? Malcolm Gladwell, you want to hear a great story? Watch Malcolm Gladwell's TED Talk on spaghetti sauce. But there's variety, right? Not one size fits all. Not one type of leader fits all. We've talked to doctors. We've talked to lawyers. We've talked to educators, teachers, students, college kids, just people in the military. A ton of different types of folks. And there's a lot of variety out there. There's also a lot of people that they have a terrific message, and their message is not out there. We haven't heard them. And now podcasts, now during the pandemic, people have their buds in, they're walking, they're separate. Podcasts are through the roof. My listenership through the roof because of this time. But also, there's a lot of voices out there that deserve to be heard, and they are. And lastly, people have passions. They want to share about their passions. I always ask, what makes your motor tick? What gets you going? And people like to share their passions. And that comes out in these podcasts. I learn a ton about them. But people are very passionate about leadership, about schools, about being good people. And I am fortunate and blessed to have those come out in the podcast. So just a few points that I've learned on the show, 150 shows. And I'm really proud to have today's guest on. Let's bring him in. and we'll give him a second to come on here. This is Dr. Erik Youngman from Illinois. Erik, welcome to Education Leadership Beyond.
Greetings. I'm glad to talk with you today.
Yeah, and welcome. You look great. You got the sport coat on. You look fantastic. Erik, from Illinois, Libertyville, Illinois, in between Milwaukee and Chicago. How close to the water are you? How far away is the water?
Waukegan is about 10 minutes from me. So I'm 10 minutes or 10 minutes west of Lake Michigan. And then I got Chicago is about 45 minutes from me, and Milwaukee is about an hour. So I'm sandwiched in between Lake Michigan, Milwaukee, and Chicago.
Fantastic. Erik, introduce yourself. You have your doctorate. You're an author. You're in a great spot in Libertyville. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm just finishing, or I'm in the middle of my 8th year as Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment for Libertyville District 70. I previously was a principal there, and before that, I was an assistant principal and a first grade teacher. I have my 3 daughters. They're in 5th, 7th, and 9th grade. So it's been fun learning with them at home during this remote learning. And when they're not learning, we like to do a lot of sports together. So soccer, basketball, and golf. But, I'm blessed. Libertyville is a great school district, awesome educators, great parents, and awesome students. So I'm enjoying that. And within my role, I'm responsible for everything that relates to curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And a lot of the discussions initially were about curriculum, about adoptions, about gradings and standards. It's been great recently to talk a lot more about instruction, because I think we can have some great impact with those discussions.
Yeah. And your daughters are in school in Libertyville with you?
No, they're in Gurnee, so they're learning remotely at an elementary school, a middle school, and then my freshman is in high school. But they have been learning remotely this entire time. In Libertyville, where I work, we began the year remotely, but now it is a hybrid. So students can choose. About 25% are learning remotely, and the other 75% are in person right now.
Yeah, we have similar numbers, and that's fantastic. Tell me about leading teachers through this time, Erik. It's a tricky time. People are stressed. Some people want to be in. Some people think we should be out. Tell me about leadership through teaching and learning through this time.
Definitely emotional, but I guess I would say it's a public health crisis that's impacting schools, students, teachers, and families. So it's a difficult time right now. But I think what I'm going through is probably best exemplified with a tweet that I put out in April, where I just talked about different aspects or phases of remote learning. And I think that's what all educators are going through. The first phase, we're talking about establishing consistency and planning to align with requirements and supporting safety, social, and emotional support for students and staff. If you don't have that, we can't progress with any of the other initiatives. Phase 2 talks about communicating clearly with stakeholders and training staff. Phase 3 is establishing a culture of relationships and routines to support social and emotional needs. Again, that's students, its families, and its teachers. Phase 4 empowers learning aligned with priority standards and skills. Phase 5, enhance engagement, choice, connections, and creativity. And phase 6 is gathering feedback from stakeholders to guide continuous improvement. So I put that out in April, and then I was interviewed about 2 months ago, and now it's still applicable now. I think we're all going through that routine where we're trying to focus on the safety of the students. We're trying to make sure we focus on priority standards, but then how can we engage students? How can we provide them choice? How can we gather that feedback? So it's kind of a cycle that I just created based on what everyone was going through. But I like to revisit it because I think it exemplifies what teachers are going through, what the students are. It's not easy. But same with administrators. There's no plain book for what we're going through. We're trying to learn from other educators. I'm very active on Twitter, so I love seeing what other school districts in the U.S., but even in different countries, how are they handling it? What changes have they made? If they choose to open the schools, what else are they doing? Are they shutting down sports? Are they closing different businesses? Because if you want schools open, you probably need other sacrifices. But then it's a political and a very emotional conversation. So I am happy that our schools are open, but at the same time, teachers and families all have different opinions. So if we can give them that choice, I think that's powerful. But it's been a tough time for everyone as we started this in the spring, kind of as in an emergency protocol. And then we evolved for the beginning of the year. and now we all have to hunker down these next couple months as the vaccine is coming. But at the same time, we still need to be cautious.
Absolutely. And Erik, you mentioned phase 6 about, taking input and listening to stakeholders. Tell me about that process. How do you facilitate that? Because listening during this time so important. Us as leaders, right? Listening. How do you facilitate number 6 and taking input from stakeholders?
It's an easy concept. You want to make sure that you're asking for feedback. You're having those conversations. You can have those with surveys, but you don't want to survey people to death. I have my wife's school district. She's a speech pathologist. I have my 3 daughters' districts and my own, and we are bombarded with multiple emails about all these updates and they continue to change, as well as surveys. So although you want to gather information with survey, I think you need to be conscientious and purposeful of when and what questions you're asking. It might be 1 or 2 qualitative questions to understand some specific data, and then include some open-ended questions. It's always great to understand what the parent's vision is, but at the same time, what are your teachers thinking? And when you can, how can you ask the students as well? So when we were doing some research about homework, I did involve the students at the middle school. With every concept, I do not think you have to ask the students, but when you can, just listen to them. It might just be a conversation in the hallway. It doesn't always need to be formal, but I think it's making time to be purposeful, to ask those questions, and then even more importantly, just listening to what they have to say, how they say it, their body language, how passionate they are, and understanding the different versions, because just because there's the loudest voice, that doesn't mean that's everyone out of all your stakeholders. So just really try to understand what they're feeling and what they're recommending, because when I work with teachers, the district 70 teachers are amazing. And when I have a problem, I talk it through with them. They come up with some amazing solutions. Same with parents. Whatever topic we're talking about, they can share their perspective. And if you combine all of those with the student perspective, you're going to come out with a great solution that then you can revisit to make even better.
And when people had a say in that solution, when people had a part in it, they take ownership of it, right?
Ownership and buy-in, absolutely.
Yeah. That's a great method, and awesome that you had that in your way of kind of navigating through this, Erik. You said the word homework, right? And that's one of the ways you and I connected. But you wrote this book here, and where did it come from, Erik? Where did the topic come from that you felt that passionate enough to kind of get a book on this?
Yeah, ultimately, I wanted to help students, families, and educators by making homework more meaningful and reasonable. So my school district decided that we wanted to evaluate homework, and ultimately we created some homework belief statements. So I was in charge of that initiative. I collaborated with the teachers, who were awesome, the parents, and like I said, some of the Highland Middle School students as well, to gather some of that feedback. And then 2 other guiding forces. One of my daughters just had excessive amounts of homework, and she is over involved in sports. She's on multiple soccer teams, multiple basketball teams, and she golfs, but she shouldn't have over 2 hours of homework. And it was a lot. And then the third part was my learning influences on Twitter. So I would put out some information or recommendations regarding homework, and I'm watching my daughters play soccer and I'm tweeting about it. And people just came back with these passionate responses, very emotional. Sometimes they agreed, a lot of the times they did not. And eventually I communicated with people on Twitter, and eventually I always try to reach out to the experts. So I reached out to Kathy Vatterott. She wrote some great books about grading and homework, and I asked her about homework belief statements. And ultimately she was saying, Erik, you're coming up with a great perspective where you're giving recommendations of how to assign homework. You should present, you should write articles. And I thought through it a little bit, and I had created so many images for Twitter for my district, and that I've started to share, that really a book just started to take shape. And so I skipped the articles and I jumped right to a book. I thought I had enough good ideas. Routledge accepted it. So I had the ideas percolating for about a year, but I had 2 months to write it. And that part was awesome. But again, it just took that nudge from Kathy Vatterott, which was helpful. And then since then, I've been writing different proposals for conferences so I could talk about homework. And because homework is a unique topic for a pandemic, I connected it to independent practice, because independent practice is the same thing as homework. But overall, I was sharing ideas on Twitter. People were sharing feedback back to me. I started to combine some ideas, and kind of like you're writing a dissertation, my dissertation for real was about grading. But same thing, I started to look for trends and ideas that I could group together, and eventually the idea emerged. So it was a lot of talking, but it's one of those things where I like to encourage our teachers to promote opportunities for our students to interact with authentic audiences, because I'm a kind of shy person, but if I get a topic that I'm passionate about, I like sharing information about homework, and I'm ready to talk about that. But also, I was listening to feedback. People were giving me recommendations and different perspectives to think of. And even my daughters, as they were having these homework challenges, I was talking with them, and a lot of their ideas I incorporated into my recommendations.
Nice. And you mentioned the word passionate, right? People have such strong feelings about homework, whether on one side, do away with it, or the extreme importance of it. How did you navigate through those, both sides of it? Because you clearly explained about, the really how to break it down and really how to give it, and your topics on there just fantastic. We're going to get to page 46, deliberate versus traditional homework. But how did you navigate those strong passions on both sides?
I mean, it was pretty easy. Like I said, I wrote the dissertation about grading. I didn't want to do a lot of research, but I've read a lot of books, and they're talking about all of the research behind homework. Well, as an educator, and I hear teachers say it a lot, they don't have time to read books. So if I could create a book that was really could be used as a principal or a superintendent as their professional development to really change their homework, how could I create a tool that could guide this? It's not about research, it's about recommendations. If I'm talking about creating meaningful or reasonable homework and I explain what those characteristics are, how can you do that? What questions can you ask? What guiding principles can you use? And so, really, the point was, how could I make a quick read, applicable book that could be used? And like I said, I love images. So I'll put images out on Twitter because I think they can summarize concepts. I think they can provoke conversation and questions. And so that's kind of the point of it. I was kind of thinking, what are some guiding questions I could include in the book? What are some images and tables that could really be written on? And every chapter ends with some reflection questions. So I'm putting the educators and the readers to work because I want them to reflect, because you can read anything, you can go to conferences, but if you don't have an action or an outcome statement afterwards, you may as well just sat at home and watch basketball because you're not doing anything with it. So if I can encourage you to reflect, I then encourage you to take action statements and discuss these with other educators, I think it's going to be powerful to really have you make some changes instead of just reading and forgetting.
Yeah. And you do that, right? You mentioned about the images and the graphics. I mean, I was trying to show it here, but there are so many. I mean, it's really almost a workbook that you could use, like you said, a professional development as a leader to help facilitate about a conversation, because sometimes the kids do feel dumped on. Sometimes the adults, the teachers, feel they need to do it. And really, I don't know, you did a nice job with it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Specifically, I liked on page 46 here. This is the one that really got my attention. You have a lot of images in there. Where is it? Here we go. This side. Here we go. About deliberate versus traditional homework. So, for example, traditional homework, right? Daily, every day, or not at all. Whereas deliberate, it's occasional. The amount. Traditional is unreasonable. You mentioned your daughter, 2 hours of homework after sports, after dinner, after this. The kids need rest. Whereas deliberate, concise, and efficient. And the one I liked, you have a number of here: the complexity, support, assignment, the due date, multiple days to complete it to enhance flexibility. I think is so important. Why don't you touch on that one about the flexibility of the due date versus it's due the next day?
Yeah, I think you need to be cognizant of that at the middle school and high school level, especially, but for any grade, if you can give one assignment and you can empower the students with choice where they have multiple days to finish it, I think that just gives them flexibility. If that's the day they have 2 hours of gymnastics, then they can do it the next day. I think sometimes even in the younger grades, you can just assign something and say it's all due Friday. I know the middle school teachers would say if you extend the due date, students procrastinate. Anyway, so why do that? But I think part of the power of that is giving the student the choice. And the other part is empowering that flexibility because they have multiple teachers. And so if you have 4 teachers all assigning 40 minutes of homework, add that up. That's a lot of homework. If you give them 20 minutes and multiple days to finish, they can finish it in different increments when they have time. So as much as you can give them choice, it does take some planning for the teacher. But I think ultimately, if we're cognizant of the challenges people are facing, and like I said, I make that connection to remote learning, you have to be cognizant of synchronous learning, which is live, or asynchronous independent practice. And if they're sitting in front of a screen for 6 hours and now you want them to finish 2 more hours, what flexibility can you give them? You want them to get outside and exercise and do something. But if you're giving them multiple days, another thing with that multiple due dates is also just giving them choice. I mean, it might be allowing them to choose a type of problem that they could finish. Another one is varying up where you are in the learning. If everyone is learning at the beginning with some exploratory and then differentiated practice, but by the end of the unit, there's some creativity opportunities where there's opportunities for innovation and creating. I think everyone can benefit from it. But ultimately, the choice and the multiple days to complete, I think empowers that flexibility.
Yeah. And you touched on it here, Erik, talking about, kids being on the screen and then more, has virtual learning changed the relationship with homework? What has this pandemic done with the relationship with homework?
I just laugh. My seventh grader last week said, "Well, my teacher says bye, have a great day," and then she assigns me an hour and a half of homework. And again, it's if everyone's doing that, the kid can have a good day because they're on their computer and sometimes they're taking a break on their phone. And so again, I think that's just another reason. One of the topics I also talk about is just that concise homework. So when I'm talking about meaningful homework, that's the second part. But reasonable is completion time, complexity, and frequency. So for complexity, how rigorous is it? How complex is it? Is it reasonable? When we're talking about meaningful, you have to give them a meaningful purpose, meaningful learning targets, meaningful format, and meaningful sequence. And I think in remote learning setting, you need to be cognizant of this. How can you just give them an exit ticket, a concise assignment where it's just 1 or 2 questions? You should be able to differentiate so the student does not have excessive amounts. So again, I think it's just being aware of the student, giving them some choice, and being creative about how it is assigned. Because as much as you want to not always assign online work, they're online when they're doing the synchronous instruction, they're online when they're looking for the assignment, and then they're on their phones as well. So as much as you can just make it more reasonable and concise, I think that's going to help a long way.
Yeah. Well said, and you touched on a lot of points there. If you happen to be watching live, you have a question for Dr. Erik Youngman and I about this, we'd love for you to jump on. My biggest fan is watching Erik, my mom, and hopefully, Mom, I did all my homework when I was supposed to. Don't rat me out here on live podcast. Erik, how about you? Right, you wrote. You said you wrote the book in 2 months. Like how? I mean, it's big. It's got a ton of graphics. Like, how did you get this done in 2 months?
I mean, I had the ideas because I had to create presentations for my school district. And then as I'm driving, we might have been driving to a soccer tournament in Minnesota. I'm thinking of some ideas and I'm telling one of my daughters to write it down. So my brain is always working. When I'm mowing the lawn and driving, that's probably when I have my best ideas because I have these concepts and then that's where I start to make those connections. So once in a while I'm scribbling, but usually if I have a daughter in the car, I'm asking them to write down those ideas. But I'm constantly learning every conversation. Anything on Twitter, I have a little note section in my phone and I'll write all those ideas down. And so I'll have it numbered. And right now I'm probably at number 200 and I just keep making connections. And after I write something, then I'll make a slide about it. And I think that's what's happening where I might make about 20 slides and I'd tweet about it. And then I would start to connect a couple of those and those would come into a bigger idea. And recently that's what I've been doing with my blogs too. So I wrote a lot about grading and homework, and now I'm writing a lot about growth mindset. But really what it is I'm trying to read some inspiring work about growth mindset and then it helps me think of a concept. And after I get 3 or 4 good slides, then I create a blog about it. And lately I've been working with Teach Better, but it's a kind of cool way to do it because you have the slide, which is just that quick graphic. But then if you can connect it and add some depth to it and ask some thought-provoking questions, that seems to be working out for me now. So again, usually it's just isolated thoughts because I'm walking around the classrooms at my 5 different schools. I'm listening to my daughters. I'm listening to my wife, and I'm reading at Twitter. And any one of those ideas, I'm like, I could relate that to homework, or that could connect to a question I could ask, or better yet, that could be a recommendation about homework. And so it's just constantly thinking. Again, I'm driving my kids to basketball games, and not now during the pandemic, but you have to get them there 45 minutes early. They're warming up. Well, while they're warming up, I'm walking around the school and I'm taking notes and just connecting all those. So, I'm always writing. I have a piece of paper with me, and I kind of look like I'm antisocial, but usually I'm multitasking. I'm usually listening to a podcast. I have my earphones in. I'm listening at 2x speed. And anytime I hear something cool, I'll make a note so I can connect something on Twitter or a book.
I love it. And I'm laughing, Eric. I do the same exact thing at my kids' game. We get them there an hour early. They like being early. And I look at that as I have an hour of brain time. And what can I do? I'm writing a book. I do talk to text. I think the people at my kids' soccer game are watching me but it's valuable time and very similar. Your brain gets going. I think that's a superpower and I focus on shutting it down, like when I'm with my family, when I'm with my kids, because I've been guilty of that as well. But I think that's a great trait, and kudos to you for maximizing that time, all with the message of trying to help people. That's fantastic.
I try.
Do you ever get criticized by your wife or your daughters? Like, hey, Dad, come back here. We're not talking about homework. We're talking about,
It depends. Usually for soccer, I'm standing off to the side. I used to play soccer and basketball and baseball. And as an athlete, I was super engaged and very passionate about it. And then I started coaching my daughters, and I was amped and I was excited, but now as a parent, that's not my job. I'm not supposed to coach. I'm not supposed to say a word. So it's actually better if I have my headphones in. Then I'm not going to say anything to the ref. I know you're a ref. So that's something I would never do, but I don't need to coach my kid. That's not my job. So I'd rather have my headphones in and watch them. And then I'm not coaching them from the side. So I'm watching them all the time. And, when I'm at home, same thing. I need to put my phone down a little bit more. I think I'm getting a little bit better at it. But again, try to focus on in the moment topics. But like I said, sometimes I'll be watching sporting events and parents are not behaving as they should. So this helps me because, again, I'm just quietly listening. I'm clapping for my daughter and watching, but I don't need to say a word.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Erik, you got your doctorate, you're an author, and I believe in the concept that success leaves clues, right? Who are some mentors along the way that have helped you? You mentioned about the woman who kind of got you going with the book, but who was a leadership mentor that had a profound impact on your life?
Yeah, I think ultimately you have to have the courage to ask the correct questions at the correct time to the correct people. And so I think there's been multiple people. I think I had the courage to ask Kathy Vaderot, like you were talking, and I'm very thankful for her feedback to me. But really, I talked to lots of educators and athletes, previous principals and superintendents. They've been great. But now it's even shifted to Twitter, where I'm just asking someone. If someone's good, I'm going to be courageous enough to ask them a question. I'm going to DM them. I'm going to email them, and I'm going to learn with them. So I think it's really just, being courageous. And then the second part of that is learning and listening to them. So if someone's going to give you advice, you need to learn from that. And so, like I said, I've learned a lot from the administrators within Illinois. I'll go to other presentations and at conferences, and I'm trying to ask questions to other people. So, but right now it's everyone. Just really trying to learn from what other people are going through in the pandemic as they're writing books. Whatever topic we're talking about, I really try to reach out to the experts and learn from the best.
Yeah. And you and I connected through Twitter, and you absolutely do that. I love it that you ask the question and then you take action. And social media, I know that I'm watching the documentary. I'm going to watch it with my family. gets a bad rap, but you're really using Twitter as a powerful learning tool. Tell me about that journey, Erik.
Well, it's interesting. I learned about it, I think, 4 years ago at a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I just started to follow some different educators. And
Mm-hmm.
really, it was about when I was doing my dissertation, I was learning a lot from grading. And so I would listen to Tom Gusky and yeah, I would interact on a SBL chat, a standards based learning chat. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
interacting with other authors about grading, which was just tremendous. So that was unique. And then I continued to read and retweet, and I'm like, all right, I need to start creating something. So I finally found a topic, and that was homework and growth mindset. And now I'm reading different topics, but people who follow me, they may see a lot. I'm tweeting with the hashtag growth mindset because I just think it's so powerful. I want to be a good model for my daughters. I want them to learn to be resilient and courageous. And I think athletes and educators and students can learn from that. And so I'm trying to look at what other hashtag I'm interested in. It might be homework, it might be grading, it might be growth mindset. And I learn from what other experts are saying. And lately, I've been really focusing on quotes. So I'm really interested right now in hope and courage and confidence. And so I'm finding two good quotes from amazing historians and leaders, and then I'm putting those on a Google slide, and then I'm creating my own quote above it to try to connect those thoughts and use my own words because it's fine to retweet and share others people's thoughts, but now I want to create, and that's what I want to also model for our students as well. You know, we want to not just consume, we want to create. So how can you leave a footprint? How can you interact with authentic audiences? During this pandemic, it's a really challenging time, and our district and other districts have to make these challenging decisions. But when I can wholeheartedly say, hey, in Ohio, in New York, in Australia, this is how it's working and happening, I think that's very powerful because then you're just more informed about the topics. And so I'll purposely, deliberately search out specific hashtags and authors, and I'll follow them for a while just to learn from them. Lately, I've been trying to learn from a lot of conferences. I didn't go to Instr, which is a technology conference this year, but I followed them on Twitter just to see what people were learning about. One of the topics there was hope. Not anything that I thought of, but I'm like, huh, during this pandemic, that's a great topic. How about I start to look into that? So I love following conferences. I love learning from principals. I love seeing what teachers are doing. I'm just looking for good ideas. Once in a while, I just see some funny videos. And again, I try to connect that with growth mindset about resilience. But again, I think it's a way for me to learn and unwind. But really, right now, I'm trying to create and share as well.
Yeah, good for you, man. That was very inspiring. The whole thing you just said there, that was really inspiring. I don't know if you watched with your girls. I'm watching it on Netflix now. Brene Brown's Call to Courage.
I'll have to take a look.
Yeah, really inspiring, really good. Again, talking about courage and growth mindset. So you can watch it with your girls. I mean, it's for boys too, but I'm watching now. It's great. And then I love the acronym for HOPE. Hold on, possibilities exist. Yeah, so good for you. Erik, you mentioned a lot about your school and things like that, but how about away from school? What are some things that you do to sharpen your saw? You mentioned about social media, being fit, and being involved with your girls' sports. How about some things that else you do to sharpen your own saw away from school?
Golf, soccer, and basketball with my daughters. Unfortunately, I played a lot of soccer and basketball, and I have some bad back issues right now. I have slip discs, and I can't really play anymore. So my exercise is more walking instead of jogging right now.
Yeah.
And also golf, though. But it's been great because I've been able to introduce those sports to my daughters. They are continuing to play them, but now I hope they choose them. My freshman was just focusing on soccer and basketball, but she was in a lot of golf tournaments a couple of years ago. And I keep saying the only way you're getting a college scholarship is for golf. It's not for basketball. It's not for soccer. It might be academics, but I keep saying you got to earn that golf scholarship to Stanford. And finally, for 2 years, she blew me off. But now all of a sudden she started asking again, hey, next year I think I'm going to play golf. So we'll see. For girls, I think it's a great way to earn a scholarship, but it's a good way of learning responsibility and character. So again, I love golfing, and it's even better if I can do that with my daughters.
For you, man. Good. This was great, Erik. I learned a lot. You're somebody that people need to hear, like I talked about, that getting that voice out there. So we make sure we get this podcast out. Again, if you're watching live or listening, we are going to do a book giveaway on Twitter, and we'd love to get a copy, a signed copy in your hands of Erik's book. Erik, we're going to get wrapping up here before we get to rapid fire. Was there anything else that you wanted to share or that I didn't ask you about?
More, I mean, just thank you to families and educators for their creativity, collaboration, and flexibility. It's been a challenging times, and educators are doing an awesome job. And again, I just want to continue to empower that growth mindset. If we can empower autonomy and agency and ownership, I think we can do that if we talk about responsibility, resiliency, reflection, and resourcefulness. And with everything, I think we need to get out of our comfort zone and get into our growth and learning zone. We need to take some risks and commit with focus and grit.
Awesome, man. Well said. Let's get the rapid fire so we get you home to take care of that family. And these are quick questions, Erik. Whatever comes to the top of your mind. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Here we go. Last book you read.
Visible Learning for Teachers by John Hattie.
Wow. Okay. Have you read Growth Mindset, by the way? Mindset by Dweck. Have you read it yet?
Absolutely. Great book.
Yeah. She's the guru there. Last movie you saw?
Probably a family movie. Jingle Jangle and Elf, just with the kids.
Okay. You watch the Christmas Chronicles too with the kids?
Not yet.
Get it in before Christmas. It was excellent. Favorite place to travel?
Caribbean, golf course, and beach. I think the last one I've been at was Dominican Republic, but I love that clear Caribbean water, and I want to golf as much as possible.
Good. He got a passion there. Erik and I were talking off air. I had a chance to go up around Lake Michigan, and he's trying to get to the warmer weather. But if you've never been up that way, I just thought it was fantastic. We came straight down. We did Green Bay, Milwaukee, and then that we didn't have time for Chicago, so that's next time when I come to Libertyville.
There you go.
How often do people sing the opening to YMCA when they're talking about you?
I have to admit, with my last name, it's definitely become a favorite for my kids and me. So if there's parties, we'll dance to that one for sure.
When I come to hear you speak at a big time conference, when you're the keynoter, I want you walking out to that.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
We were singing it. My wife, as we were getting the questions ready, we were singing it. I said, he must get this all the time. Must be so tired of him hearing this joke.
That's funny.
Yeah. Erik, you shared a lot of passions, a lot of things that get you going and motivating. But how about some things that bother you, that kind of get under your skin, maybe a pet peeve?
Inefficiency, but then also loud cars that wake my family up when we're trying to sleep.
I'm with you on that. We have a neighbor that moved in. The house has been empty 16 years, and they got that thing on the muffler. I hear them every morning.
I try to be patient, but if my kids are sleeping or I'm sleeping, that's annoying to me.
That's a pet peeve. How about a successful morning routine, something you do in the morning that puts you in a position for success?
Well, I would golf if I can. If not, I'm walking and I'm listening to a podcast on the 2x speed so I can listen to multiple ones. But that just clears my voice or clears my mind and gets me a little exercise in a little bit. So every morning I'll do that.
Favorite thing about Lake Michigan?
I love looking at it. I love swimming in it. When I grew up in Racine, Wisconsin, so I would play my high school soccer games right on the lake. And now I can go visit Milwaukee and Chicago, and it's always in the background. So it's beautiful to look at.
Yeah, it really is. Favorite Big Ten team?
I grew up in Wisconsin, so I'm partial to the Wisconsin Badgers, but I love watching fast scoring basketball teams. So I was surprised at how University of Illinois did very well last week against Duke. So I'm rooting for them both, but the edge goes to Wisconsin Badgers.
Okay. And you're in the heart of the Big Ten country there.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a Big Ten transplant. We're not far from Penn State here. And I love the Big Ten, and you're right in the mix there. So, Erik, a lot of people, again, stressed, frustrated. What is something that you noticed is a positive that has come out of this COVID time?
I mean, I just think it's where people have been collaborative, creative, resilient, and flexible. I think more specifically, I think teachers rapidly modified their instructional practices, and they enhanced that with technology, and they connected with students. And so there may have been an initiative that might take a year, and we packed it into 1 month, and all of a sudden the teachers learned it in a week and were using it with their students. So I think there were some nice changes that utilized technology while they were still aware of those connections with the students.
Best purchase under $100 that has had a great impact on your life?
We do a lot of family games. So I would just say two of our current family games that we like are Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza and Chameleon.
Okay. What's the first one again?
Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza. It's a card game.
That sounds cool. I might have to check that out. Something about Erik Youngman that people do not know about?
I guess probably a sore subject. I love dogs. I grew up with dogs, and my daughters ask me every day to get a dog, but I keep saying no because we're just too busy. So even after this pandemic ends, yes, we're home now, but they'll be at school and sports or work all day. So I'm saying no, and they're not happy with me.
Right. I hear you. I'm a dog lover myself. Erik, you dropped a lot of knowledge here. I got 2 pages of notes. It was fantastic. Is there a quote? Is there something that is your go-to quote, or something motivating that you want to end this with a quote?
Yeah, there's probably 2. So Carol Dweck, as you mentioned about growth mindset. So it's just a basic quote: love challenges, be intrigued by mistakes, enjoy effort, and keep on learning. And then, like I said, I like to pair up some quotes and create my own. And the growth mindset quote I've been pushing out lately is learn and improve from feedback, reflection, and self-assessment as you creatively and courageously persevere with a growth mindset. So I keep putting that one out there because I think those concepts of listening to feedback and reflecting are very powerful. And again, I think the more I read about creativity and showing courage, I think those are just powerful attributes that can help everyone.
Well said. Erik, if people want to get in touch with you, if they want to order the book, if they want you to come present, what would be the best way they can get in touch with you?
Twitter is my primary connection. So at Erik_Youngman, and it's Erik with a K. And then the book is through Routledge. But you can just Google it, 12 Characteristics of Deliberate Homework. But hit me up on Twitter if you have questions. I love to interact with educators and share questions and learn from each other. But Twitter right now is the primary vehicle.
Yeah. And I want to get on a chat with you. Let me know, DM me the next chat you're joining, because I want to go on with you because you had a lot to share today. This was Dr. Erik Youngman. Again, he's only on Twitter 4 years now, he said, and look where he's taken him. Erik, you really spoke very highly of the work you're doing. Really impressed and really happy to have you on. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. It's awesome listening to your podcast and reading your book and seeing what you're doing. So continue to empower and inspire other educators.
Yeah, you too. Let's cue this music up, Erik. Hopefully I can play. You don't go away. This was Education, Leadership, and Beyond, everyone. Show number 150. Pleased about that, and really excited to have Dr. Erik Youngman on, make this connection with him. Keep doing your best, everyone. Keep being patient. And just keep doing your best through this time. Erik, thanks so much.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Let's get this music queued up here, and off we go.